You have just seen and heard a small portion of John Cage's Child of Tree, written in 1975. But what you have not been able to do is to partake in the full sensory experience that this work affords the player. As well as the obvious senses of sight and sound, which can be easily accessed by nearly all spectators, as a player, I can also access the other senses, such as touch, the somatosensory, from the smooth surface of the dried chili pods, which become sharp as I crush them, to the cactus spines, which do really hurt, smell, as olfaction, as I snap a cinnamon stick or agitate this bundle of wheat stems, the smell of plants surrounds me, and lastly there is taste, gustation. I can actually taste the cinnamon and chili in the air as I break them, and also, to a lesser extent, I can taste the dust from the lotus seed pods. This, of course, raises questions of agency and indeterminacy, for from historical models of composer and patron dominance, we are now faced with not only performer agency, Cage describes Child of Tree as an improvisation, but also, particularly in Cage's oeuvre, agencies of chance and agencies of the objects themselves, through Cage's notion of contingency. So let's think about chance for a moment. There are layers of chance procedures at work in Child of Tree. The score itself is very difficult to read. Cage's handwriting is notoriously indecipherable, added to which there are numerous crossings out, half crossings out, additions and inserts. So navigating your way through the instructions is a procedure that is somewhat open to chance. The structure of the performance, how many plants, which plants, how many sections the piece is divided into, how long each section is determined by use of the I Ching or Chinese Book of Changes. This can be accomplished either by coin throwing or, as is more usual now, computer program, as is the case with this performance. We can add a further layer of indeterminacy to the improvisation here by applying the emotion or action of each I Ching result to its section, e.g. calm, angry, sorrowful. And then there are the contingencies or agencies of the plant materials themselves. We cannot predict exactly how these objects will react during performance. As Cage said, quoted in Pritchard, in the case of the plant materials, you don't know them, you're discovering them. So the instrument is unfamiliar. If you become very familiar with a piece of cactus, it very shortly disintegrates, and you have to replace it with another one which you don't know. So the whole thing remains fascinating and free of your memory as a matter of course. Using Cage's gamut technique, both in terms of aggregates of sonorities and instruments, allows for a very rich sonic palette, but I would also argue that we can extend that gamut idea to modes of sound production, bearing in mind that most of Cage's work from the 1960s is concerned with facilitating processes. Obviously Child of Tree is from 1975. If, as players, we explore the production of the maximum number of sounds, a gamut of performance processes centred on the plant materials, then to my mind at least, the resulting performance is much richer and more varied than if we attempt to merely virtuosically play the organic materials, thereby centering attention on the ego of the player, not the played. I would also suggest that virtuosity is simply unnecessary, for who needs a player-orientated performance of a work for amplified cactus orchestra and assorted seed pods and so on? Isn't that virtuosic enough in its own right for most of us? The plants are their own virtuosos by default. So, agency is very mobile and uncertain in Child of Tree. We could also see this as being an inherently deconstructive mode of creation. For Child of Tree is not as simple as a binary opposition of performance versus composition. Authorship is overturned. Agency is overturned. The hierarchy is both mobile and undecidable. The result? I hope you'll agree that Child of Tree is not only hypnotically beautiful, but also timeless, placeless, egoless, and egalitarian.